Insightful podcasts by informative hosts. Insights into Things, a podcast network. Welcome to Insights into Entertainment, a podcast series taking a deeper look into entertainment and media. Your hosts, Joseph and Michelle Whalen, a husband and wife team of pop culture fanatics, are exploring all things from music and movies to television and fandom.
Welcome to Insights into Entertainment. This is episode 150, a strong finish. I'm your host, Joseph Whalen, and my rested and relaxed co-host, Michelle Whalen.
Hi, everyone.
How you doing today, dear?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well now that I've gotten everything back up and running here.
And you're not cursing or...
It shocks me. We just did a podcast yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Everything worked perfectly fine throughout the whole thing. Didn't do anything to configuration, came in, turned everything back on, and nothing worked.
And nothing works, of course. That's how it always is, isn't it?
I love technology.
Yes, you do.
That is the bane of my existence most days. So we're back after a relatively long hiatus.
Yeah, I don't even remember the last.
It's been quite some time, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while for us, at least.
We have. We've been recording our other ones. We haven't found all that much to talk about, really.
Right, because we kind of feel like we're in a little bit of a rut.
Yeah.
Where we're not sure where we want to go with things. And, for those of you listening, watching, maybe give us some ideas. What is it that you like about our podcast? What don't you like about our podcast? What can we do to improve?
Yeah.
What would you like to hear us talk about or not talk about or review or whatnot? I think that's where we kind of were feeling like we were more like an entertainment show.
Yeah, well, Insights in Entertainment kind of would have made sense being an entertainment show.
Right, but like an Entertainment Tonight or
right,
something.
We were doing too much news reporting, and
Right, and it was something where we wanted to be topical, but we also didn't want it to be this person passed away or this thing or that thing.
But we didn't want to regurgitate somebody else's news stories and just stick to that.
Right. So we're still kind of trying to figure out what it is that we want, I guess. And so again...
It took us 140 some episodes to realize we didn't like what we were doing. Go figure.
Well, no, we've had different variations throughout the 150 episodes.
We have. We've tried different things.
Hey, you know what? Some podcasts don't even make it to 150.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
So there's that. So again, still trying to figure out what we want to be when we grow up.
Right. If we want to grow up.
If we want to grow up. Well,
that seems to be the real challenge.
Yeah. No.
But after a long hiatus, we're back in a revamped studio. We completely redid the studio. We upgraded some of our equipment. If you have watched previous episodes of the podcast, you'll notice that our positions are reversed, so we changed things up dramatically there.
Yep.
And we had some interesting experiences to share. First that we're going to talk about was from a trip we took up to Niagara Falls a few weeks back. Had fun with that. That was
we did.
Interesting. Sad little town because I didn't have my passport and Maddie didn't have hers, so we couldn't go into the fun part of Niagara Falls, which is the Canadian side.
Yeah, we'll get more into that when we start. But
and we have a new convention in town, which we attended. That was potentially a really good convention. They just didn't advertise.
Right.
So hopefully the poor turnout didn't turn them off, and they will be back.
Yeah.
And then we're going to wrap up with some thoughts on a few of our favorite shows coming to an end. And then we have some afterthoughts that I just threw in literally in the last 5 minutes to finish things off with. But before we do that, though, I do want to take a moment to invite our listening and viewing audience to subscribe to the podcast. You can find audio versions of this podcast listed as Insights into Entertainment. And as always, you can find audio and video of all the network's podcasts listed as Insights into Things. We're available on Google, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, pretty much anywhere you can get a podcast. I'd also invite you to write in, which, we've already solicited your input here, but you can email that over to us at comments@insightsintothings.com. You can hit us on Twitter at insights_things, or you can find links to all that and more on our official website at insightsintothings.com. Shall we get into it?
Sure, let's do it.
All right, here we go. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the Strong National Museum of Play, which when we were up in Niagara Falls, we actually went out to Rochester for a day trip because it's a bit of a ride from Niagara Falls, and found that we probably needed much more than one day to do this museum.
Yeah, it was definitely, we spent pretty much the whole day there, and we still didn't get to see everything. There were a few areas that we were just tired because we didn't expect to have so much to see. And we kind of said, if we ever come back to the area, we would probably do an overnight in Rochester, just because Rochester had so many different things to see and do that we didn't get a chance to do. So now this was something you had heard about the museum. You remembered it from a show that you watch.
Yes, it had appeared. In fact, they had a display at the museum.
Right.
It was the most appearing facility on the TV show that I watch called Mysteries at the Museum, that goes around and profiles different exhibits at various museums, and it was there. It appeared on the show, I think, 17 times.
Yeah, something like that.
So that was where I had heard about it, and on the drive up, I was looking for things that we could do, and it came up in there, and I thought, hey, that would be really neat, but not on the way up because we knew it was going to take some time.
Right, because at first we were like, all right, well, do we do it on our way to Niagara? Do we take it as a day trip? And as it turned out, because we really didn't have anything planned for our trip, we said, okay, well, this will be the day that we'll go. And it ended up probably being the highlight of our trip, besides the one restaurant that we really enjoyed, but that's a whole other.
We'll plug them too by the time we're done here.
Sure.
But yeah, no, the Strong National Museum of Play, also known as just the Strong, is in Rochester, New York. It was established in 1969. Based initially on a personal collection of a Rochester native, Margaret Woodbury Strong, the museum opened to the public in 1982 after several years of planning, cataloging, and exhibition development for the museum's new building in downtown Rochester, which the building itself is just amazing to see. It's massive. It's got probably one of the most incredible designs I've ever seen for a museum itself, both inside and outside, and it's just a wonder to see.
Yeah. So for at least 15 years after its opening, the mission of the museum was to interpret the social and cultural history of average Americans between 1830 and 1940. Under the direction of H.J. Swiney and William T. Anderson, Mrs. Strong's collection of dolls and toys, American and European decorative art,
And in the 1990s, the museum's board of trustees and director changed the museum's mission to collecting, preserving, and interpreting the history of play. Since then, it was refined and has increased its collections, hundreds of thousands of them. And believe me, we didn't get to see them all. There's so many there.
Right.
It's been expanded twice, and in 1996, it was expanded twice in 97 and 2006. The museum is now one of the 5 play partners of the Strong, which is also home to the National Toy Hall of Fame, the International Center for the History of Electronic Games, and the Brian Sutton Smith Library and Archives of Play, and produces the American Journal of Play.
The National Museum of Play is the only collections-based museum anywhere devoted solely to the study of play. And although it is a history museum, it has the interactive characteristic of a children's museum, making it the second largest museum of that type in the United States. The museum
The museum's exhibits are immersively themed for video games, storybooks, television shows, education, nature, history, comic books, carousel, and train rides, and they do have a massive carousel there, and children's lifestyles. E-Game Revolution is the first permanent video game exhibit in the U.S. and includes the World Video Game Hall of Fame. The National Toy Hall of Fame is at the museum. Dancing Wings Butterfly, as we mentioned already, features thousands of butterflies and is the largest indoor butterfly garden in New York. The Berenstein Bears Down a Sunny Dirt Road is an original permanent exhibit produced in partnership with the Berenstein family. So I was in awe, really, of the whole thing.
Yeah.
It was just shocking, the size, the quality of the collection. One of the things that really kind of caught my attention was a number of the exhibits were interactive in that they would ask your input. And as you provided your input, they would tally the input of the visitors and use it in the various studies that they do, that they release in their magazines and books. So it was kind of neat being able to be part of that, you know, a little bit of part of that history and that knowledge that's preserved there. But unfortunately, we just didn't get to see the whole thing. We didn't have enough time to see the whole thing.
Right, because again, it was just one exhibit after another, and it was like, well, what's around this corner, and what's this corner, and it was just so well done. And what was interesting was going back, which I did today, because they did have a bunch of different plaques about Margaret Woodbury Strong and her background, and she was an only child, and her parents were very affluent, and she traveled a lot with her parents. So by the time she was 11, she had probably seen more of the world than most people do in a lifetime. And because of that, she would always collect little toys and treasures from these trips. And her parents were also collectors as well. You know, her father collected coins and her mother collected Japanese art. So it was kind of like the hobby of collecting things. And that's how her personal collection actually started, to the point where she actually built 2 wings onto her house in Rochester to display these things, and would have people come to her house and sign a little guest registry that they had been there. And over time, that was when the Historical Society kind of came in and said, hey, we really should do something with these. And that was kind of the start of the museum. And when she passed away, she had willed all of the items to start this foundation. So, you know, it was all started just by a little girl collecting, you know, toys, and just at the time to be able to see. And that's what's so interesting is, you know, some of the sections, they kind of go through the history of, here's the history of a doll, you know, from the 1800s to now. And it's so well done and so well preserved. And then you have, you know, the board game section, and here's what board games were like in the 1800s to now. And again, just the video game section, which was we probably could have spent so much more time just with the video games and the history of the video games and how it's evolved. And you figure the video games, that's a much smaller window of time that they have been around versus, some of the other things. So it was just so much to do, and for all ages, and it was funny because when we were thinking about going, we know of the Please Touch Museum in Philly. And that's one of those things where little kids go. Once your kids get to a certain age, you don't usually go back there. But with this, there were people there that didn't have kids who were visiting the museum because there's just so much to see and do. It's a real museum, and for, the kids at heart or you've played, anybody that goes there, you're going to find something that you've played with that was in your personal collection there.
Yeah.
And, just finding the history of Legos and how Legos kind of came to be. And that was really fascinating, and all the different things that were there.
The other thing that really kind of struck me was that the entire facility was geared towards play and entertainment, to the point that even when we went to get lunch, the cafeteria where they served lunch, you had a skywalk that you could do, and it was various levels, and the kids strapped into these harnesses and could walk the sky over your head while you're sitting there eating. or even when we left, they had a little coffee shop when you come in and you leave, where you just stop and get a little snack, a little pastry, have a little refreshment. But they've got board games on the shelf there that you can just pull those out and just play those while you're sitting there eating. So, like, literally everything that they had there was geared towards it. It was one of the most immersive experiences in the spirit of what the museum stood for that I've ever seen.
Yeah. And the other thing that was really interesting was they had books all over the place that you could take out from their library. So obviously we couldn't have done it because we're not local. I'm sure that, it's something where you go to check it out. But, hey, if your little Tommy's reading a book and thought it was really cool, we'll borrow it. It's a big giant library with everything else.
Yeah, well, and even to that point, over where the Berenstein Bears is, they have an entire storybook area. And it's not just a place where you can sit and read. It's a place where they've got the props, and they've got the toys, and they've got the scenery. It's a place where the books that the kids are reading can come to life right in front of you there.
Right.
I can't imagine driving somebody's imagination any better than that. The one was the mystery room.
Yes.
Talk about that for a little bit.
That was kind of really cool. We kind of came around this corner, and it was kind of set up like a haunted house. But what was awesome was it had like secret passageways where you could go behind the walls and spy on the people that were in the room.
Through the portrait. You could
look through the portrait. And then when you were on the other side, there was an area where there were buttons to do sound effects, so you could make it sound like a screeching cat or a ghost or chains and scare the people that are in the other room. So, that was just really neat. One of the other sections that Maddie and I had gone to, where it was kind of the fairy tale area, they had a big, giant... and they had like a pirate ship. Well, you could walk across the pirate ship, and then there was a bridge, and then there was like a little nook area where you could kind of sit and just read if you wanted to. That was up back, hidden away, away from everything. So all these little nooks and crannies of places to go and hide and explore. And when you get someplace, oh, look, there's a plaque, and here's some information about a story that this is based upon or something. So just really cool, just so much to see and do. where it would really be nice to go back there and spend, 2 days doing
we
it.
need to figure out a way to plan to get back up in that area and see the
Well,
other stuff that's
the
up there.
Rochester Institute of Technology, since we're going to be visiting some colleges this
true.
coming year.
That is true. So anyway, that was the Strong Museum of Play that we went to, and there'll be links in the show notes if.
Did you have a video for that?
Actually, I think I did, and I didn't play it. I guess I should have probably have played that, huh? We probably could have talked over the
It's
video.
okay. We liked it so much, we'll do it again.
They had a giant Mr. Potato Head that was a remote control Mr. Potato Head you
Yeah.
could play with.
Oh, and the superhero section, which was...
Their superhero section was huge.
Yeah.
They had interactive things that you could do there. You could great picture opportunities for it. So
More of the little fairy tale...
gingerbread house. You had
section.
a castle there. You had a dragon. Everything was so interactive.
Oh, this was one of the hidden nook areas, and then again, Harry Potter stuff, Narnia stuff. So up until, current items,
And
obviously.
some of the stuff was like literally museum grade things that you would not normally find in stores and stuff as well. Oh, and they had a train. Yeah, they had a train inside too.
Right. They did actually have, and then the different, school area type things. Then a whole huge section of Sesame Street with a huge Big Bird and play area and stuff. And then here's part of the history of the dolls.
And the dolls were one of the interactive ones too, where you got they asked you a series of questions about the
Right.
dolls. They showed you like the 1860s dolls and the moderns, and they asked simple questions like, are these the same type of play? And they went into
Oh, and
details.
of course, the little play Wegmans that you could go into and shop, which was
Right.
adorable. Because we love Wegmans. And then Snoop, basically any character, and our daughter loves SpongeBob, so that was, woo, yay, SpongeBob was there.
The video game section was because it was a walk down memory lane to begin with, because it was a lot of home video games and stuff like that. A lot of classic World War II era type toys that were in there that you just don't see, and tons of Star Wars. They had probably 4 or 5 different Star Wars displays, which
Right,
is,
and it was Star Wars of every generation.
Right, right.
Between the old, the new, the original.
no sequels though, which
No
I was okay with.
You were totally okay with that. Buffy was even represented.
Action figures had their own section there, which was awesome. They had the original Promise Box for the 1978 Star Wars figures. And then just classic toys that if you saw anywhere else, they would look like creepy dolls.
Right, but when they're
But
all
they
put
were
together,
presented so well
you
here that
kinda
you could
go,
appreciate
okay.
the history.
yeah, and you go, oh wow, and again you go, I had that, or
And that was every corner you turned. Oh, I had that. I played with that.
or
I had
my
a friend
neighbor
that
had that. Right, I've played with that before. I had that before.
Remember they had the light bright section there. In the video game section, they even had recovered a copy of the E.T.
The E.T. game
that was buried out in the desert.
That was funny.
So that was
and
interesting.
I tried playing that and realized, wow, this game really does stink.
Oh, and their dollhouse section.
Oh my
which
gosh.
They had every possible dollhouse room imaginable.
Right.
On display.
And like multiple houses and basically explaining how dollhouses, here's the first Lego set, but with the dollhouses talking about how usually it was a model of the child's own house, made with pieces from their house, and kind of the history of how dollhouses kind of came to be, and that the idea behind a dollhouse was to a little girl to be prepared to be a mom and have her own house.
And you learned that Samsonite was the first dealer in the United States for Legos.
I went, luggage?
Yeah.
What? You bought a piece of luggage and you got a Lego house? What? How'd that happen? So that was, amazing to see.
and of course, then
And
you
solitaire.
see solitaire.
Right. So you had solitaire. And that was like, it was a dedicated display just for solitaire.
Yeah.
Because it had the old mouse and everything with it.
And which my mom had. So it was kind of funny. And the World Almanac to play. Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego?
Right.
Because you didn't have Google to look up things.
And that's the thing with a lot of their displays. It wasn't just, oh, here's the topic. It's here's all the supporting things that went around with it.
Right.
That made it all that more familiar for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was good that we took all these pictures because we were running out of time to, here's the whole thing with the ET, being buried and stuff like that. But just to be able to go back and look and see what we missed, really, but yet
Right.
at least got pictures of. And
Well, and what was neat was they gave it all to you mostly in chronological order, so you could
Yeah.
actually see the evolution, whether it was the evolution of play, the evolution of the technology. You could see how you got from the 1970s, I'll say, which is kind of where I pick things up until modern times, and you can see how the technology's changed, and you realize people still play the same way.
right.
That really hasn't changed all that much. It's just the toys, the tools that we use to play.
We're a little bit more sophisticated
Yeah.
with the way.
Absolutely.
But to be able to play some of these older toys would
And
be
the selection of board games that they had was mind-blowing.
board games I didn't even know existed.
And they even, they still take donations of toys and games and stuff like that. And they'll curate them, they'll get the backstory for them, and, they make them available on display. I can only imagine if that's everything that they've got on display there.
What do
they have that they don't have room for right now
Yeah,
that they haven't
because
put on display
you
yet?
know that they probably, move stuff in and out, change the displays, every now and then. So yeah, I can't even imagine what their back room looks like.
And the technology that they had on display. They had one room where it was probably a massive wall that was, 50 feet long, and it had projections on it. Projectors, throwing various interactive things on there. But you could walk into the projection and actually interact with the displays. You could, like, it was a kid's toy room that
Right.
they were displaying. You
That
could
was
walk
part
over,
of the Toy Hall of Fame
Right.
display,
You could walk over,
which
and,
is what
and
these pictures are showing.
virtually pick something up off the shelf and play with it or bounce a ball or whatever.
Right, right.
And then you had the one wall that was the tall screen that you were able to do interactive bubble popping and
Right,
stuff like that
right.
with. So just a lot of different things to keep you occupied, to keep your mind engaged, and to just have fun.
Yeah, and that was really the whole point of it. So,
So the Strong Museum of Play in Rochester, New York. We'll be right back. For over 7 years, the Second Sith Empire has been the premier community guild in the online game Star Wars: The Old Republic. With hundreds of friendly and helpful active members, a weekly schedule of nightly events, annual guild meet and greets, and an active community both on the web and on Discord. The Second Sith Empire is more than your typical gaming group. We're family. Join us on the Starforge server for nightly events such as operations, flashpoints, world boss hunts, Star Wars trivia, guild lottery, and much more. Visit us on the web today at www.thesecondsithempire.com.
So welcome back. So for our next segment, we're going to be talking about one of the newer conventions that came to town. this past May. It was called Contropolis, PA, and this year it was held at the Greater Philadelphia Expo Center in Oaks. It's organized by Altered Reality Entertainment, and they are the producers of the Rhode Island Comic Con, which is the largest pop culture event in New England, and and this is the first time that they've done something in the Philly area.
That's pretty cool. It was huge. They had, I think, 4 halls I think they had open for it?
Yeah, I think so.
They had the cars. They had tons and tons of vendors, and vendors that we hadn't even seen before.
Right, because a lot of the vendors were from the New England area.
Right.
Because we did talk with a few of them just to kind of see, how things had been, because we had gone, did we go on Saturday or did we go on Sunday?
We went on Sunday.
We went on Sunday, and and normally we go on Sundays, and Sundays are usually a little quieter, but it just seemed very quiet. So we had asked, were you guys busy, Friday and Saturday? And they said, the crowds really weren't that big, and it seemed that they really hadn't advertised it.
Right.
And
there was a
much.
lot of stuff going on in Philly that weekend. They had playoffs for one of the sports teams going on, and a bunch of other things were going on that weekend. So it was kind of a perfect storm of things that played against their ability to really put people in the convention there. But the vendors, they had a lot of vendors that were there. They had some vendors who didn't come back in for Sunday, I think, because they were
because there were some empty spots.
But the vendors that they had there were quality products that they had there. In fact, we found a new vendor that we wound up buying quite a bit of merchandise
You wound up buying a lot.
What did I get? I got the
Red 5, that was them.
Red 5, yeah. So
that's me trying to convince our daughter to.
Right. So Maddie bought her SpongeBob. What kind of backpack was it?
Loungefly.
Loungefly backpack. I bought my Ray Force Effects lightsaber.
I bought a Haunted Mansion keychain.
You didn't really spend all that much there.
No, I didn't.
And I wound up scoring another Darth Vader statue from a different vendor as well. Tons of artists, and I love the way they did it too, because they mixed their artists in with their vendors.
Right, so that it's not just.
You didn't have a dedicated artist alley, so it was a nice mix. You could get in there. You weren't elbow to elbow with people. They arranged everything, plenty of room. They arranged everything with plenty, sufficiently wide aisles. Which that's the one thing I hate, especially when we went to New York Comic Con.
Right, that's probably our biggest.
On people.
Yeah, our biggest gripe with New York.
You had a great mix of comic book vendors, pop culture vendors. We're looking at a toffee vendor there.
Yeah, there was something for everybody. It was a very nice mix. You had the homemade stuff. That's always nice. You have a couple of different authors that are there with books.
A lot of crafty stuff.
A lot of crafty things.
And that's one of the things that I've noticed recently at the conventions is you're getting a lot of the laser engraved, laser carved wood objects and stuff now.
Right.
Now, they had celebrities here, too. So let's talk about the celebrities for a minute that they had. And I'm not talking about Fezzik there.
Sure.
So who was the highlight performer, highlight celebrity that they had?
So I think probably their top billed person was Corey Feldman.
Yeah.
From the Lost Boys and
he was
and
a draw, though. He had a line.
He had a line. He definitely had a line. Now, we didn't do any of the panels. We were going to do one or two of them.
Right.
But we were just kind of tired, and we're like, all right, you know what? I think we're done. So
that seems to be a theme in this episode.
Yeah,
we're just old and tired
now. We're just tired. We needed a nap. So that would have been interesting to see. How
Bob
many
Eubanks
people?
Panel. That would have been awesome.
I think we had missed that because I think that was Saturday, or the MASH one. I think that was Friday.
Yeah, because they had Jamie Farr and Loretta Swit there.
So that was kind of interesting because all right, Corey Feldman, yeah, I could see he's done the convention circuit before, but to see Bob Eubanks and Jamie Farr, and that was just kind of like,
yeah,
okay, that's That's
It
kind
was
of
not the typical
not the
celebrities you'd
typical,
expect.
right? And then a lot of the voice actors that, unfortunately, I don't know who any of them are.
Right. Well, and the one who was supposed to be there that I
Right.
wanted to see and would have sat through his panel, Sam Witwer, wound
Right.
up pulling out, unfortunately.
Right, but I also know him from as not a voice actor. I know him as an actor.
Well, yeah, he's an actor.
Right, I'm saying, but you know him from the Star Wars game also.
Right.
So that would have been one,
And from
yes.
Clone Wars, he was Darth Maul.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. For people that are very into gaming and anime and things like that, some of
He plays Star Wars, The Old Republic, too, you know.
Okay,
And he's on Twitch, too.
okay. Are you guys like best buds? Did you
Well,
message
no,
him to
if
find
if
out
we
why
were, he would have showed up, right? I gotta drop a note and find out what happened.
Be like, I hope everything's okay. I missed you.
When are you gonna be in town again,
When are
man?
you gonna be in town? But again, it's one of our favorite locations to go and see conventions at. But as you can see, you know, some of the space is a little sparse. They weren't filled to the max with it. But again, enough of a selection of different things out there.
They definitely overbooked the hall,
Mm-hmm.
which they'll probably correct that next time.
Right.
But as far as I know, they're coming back again. So
Yeah, they haven't updated their website with new dates yet.
Right.
So everything is still last year or this past May.
right,
But plenty to see, you know, depending on what your interests are. Again, we didn't see any of the panels, so I don't know how, you know, was space limited, was, you know, how was the sound?
but we did go through the panel room because that's where the restrooms
Right,
were.
that is true.
Which
They were
kind of
setting
thought
up.
that was odd that you would have
Yeah.
done it where the restrooms are.
Yeah, yeah. But of course they had, you know,
Because they were getting set up for karaoke.
right. They were doing, and then I think they were going to be doing like a trivia thing.
Right.
They had a couple of different things. The one that was really interesting, I don't know if we got footage of it. The one, he was a puppeteer for Henson. For
I think that was one of the last
he was
shots
he.
that we had.
Oh, okay, yeah, he was in this section. Oh, yeah, we can.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
this was the start of it with his artwork, but then he had various different Muppets that he has worked on.
Not at all creepy, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he had all his awards and everything.
So for the people who are watching and not listening, it's worthwhile to tune in and actually see some of the details that we
Yeah,
had.
so it was very, you know, it was very well done. We don't normally go to see celebrities, so that's
Right.
never oh, this is gonna.
Especially when the lead draws Corey Feldman. We're not standing in line for Corey Feldman. I'm sorry. I would have stood in line for Jamie Farr and Loretta Swit because I love MASH.
Right, and they had no
They
line,
had
so
no
you
line,
probably
right.
could have just gone over and, you know, talked to them and said hi, and they
Yeah.
probably would have been ecstatic to.
I was spent by them. We probably
Yeah.
should have did the celebrities first.
We always should do that. Go and
Yeah.
find them and work our way back.
Yeah.
Maybe next one.
So, do we have any conventions coming up in the near future?
I think September. I don't think there's anything in the summer because the last one would have been Fan Expo that we decided not to go to.
Right. We're not going to go to the Burst in Flames Horror Con at Expo Center, the outside one again, or
Well,
not doing
no,
that?
they're not doing it. That they only
Okay.
did. They'll be doing Monster Mania. Will be back at Oaks in November.
Okay.
So we'll be doing that one again.
That was a memorable one, the
Yeah.
outside one. If COVID didn't kill you, we will.
Last weekend in May.
I,
Oh, it won't be so hot.
I almost passed out. I'm over on the grass, sitting under this tiny little umbrella, trying not to die.
And at that one, they were actually selling umbrellas at
Right.
least. Where
We
you
had
know,
to buy them fast because they went quick.
Right, that is true. That is true.
So anyway, that was Contropolis, Philly. They don't have anything new. We're looking at the website now, actually.
Insights into Teens, a podcast series exploring the issues and challenges of today's youth. Talking to real teens about real teen problems. Explore issues from braces to puberty, social anxiety to financial responsibility. Each week, we talk about the topics concerning today's youth. We look at how the issues affect teens, how to cope with these issues, and how parents, friends, and loved ones can help teens handle these challenges. Check out our video episodes on youtube.com/insightsintothings. Catch our audio versions on podcast.insightsintoteens.com or on the web at insightsintothings.com. Welcome back, everyone. So for our next segment, we're going to be talking about the different couple of our favorite shows that have wrapped up and had their series finales in the last few months, or since we've actually done a podcast before. So the first would be the long-running original Walking Dead. And if you didn't ever hear about it, you're obviously living many of the group into the deepest depths of human cruelty, and they soon discover that the overwhelming fear of the survivors can be more deadly than the zombies walking among them. Since the original came out, there have been now 6 spin-offs from this show. The original, obviously, was the one that lasted the longest with 11 seasons, and kind of rewrote the way zombie shows were done and looked at, really, when you kind of think about it. The popularity really boomed once Walking Dead came around. But they finally wrapped up their season, and we kind of thought, oh, this is the end, and then all of a sudden now you have these other spin-offs where some of the other spin-offs that they've had were totally different characters, were different places. You had the one where it's out in California, one that was also in the South where there were a couple of little tie-ins, but not really. But now, after Walking Dead, they have the New York version that just came out. Dead City, which is with Negan and Maggie. But you have the Michonne show with... Allegedly. That one's also in the works. And then, of course, you have the one... I can't think.
Fear?
No. With... what's his name? Daryl, the Daryl show. That was supposed to be the Daryl and Carol show, but Carol backed out. So you have, so where you kind of thought things were just ending. Nope, we're giving you 3 other shows with characters from your beloved...
Daryl and his sister Carol and their other brother Daryl.
Right. So what did you think of the finale? Or the final season?
It was kind of... Well, the final season was just a mess. They were all over the place. And it was largely because of COVID. They didn't really know how to deal with shutting down, because a zombie show where you're getting eaten by other people doesn't really work in a pandemic, does it? True. They were very creative in how they went about doing some of the things, because you had the little shorts that came out for it that pushed it around. You had season 11A, and then you had season 11B, and then you had the interludes that were the Tales of the Walking Dead in between there.
Right.
You had the ridiculously long episodes, then you had a 4-part series, and then they did the second half of it. It was so confusing as to where you were with things that it was really like 3 seasons in one for season 11.
Right, because I think they kind of felt like they had gotten gypped out of previous seasons because of COVID coming in and shutting things down, that they
felt they had more story to tell, but yet I only read the comics up to a certain point. You did kind of read the anthologies or to kind of know where things were going, and the way the story ended on the show and where it ended in the comics was completely different. There were characters you said that survived.
And that was the problem. So by the time you got to this point in the comics, this show was completely off the rails. The main character, well, first of all, like Daryl never even appears.
Right.
So the characters,
everybody knows that part.
Right.
Yeah.
The characters that wind up at the end of the series are not the characters that are in the comic books. And the key characters that show up in the comic books are all dead or gone or missing or walkabout or whatever. You know, they're just not there.
Right.
So what was interesting was seeing the parallels. So, like, for instance, Michonne in the comics turns out to be a lawyer, and she's a judge in this new community. Well, they had to kind of have somebody there to drive part of that story.
Right.
So they pick a different one. So they pick who'd they pick for that?
Nikita. I can't think of what her.
Khrushchev?
You know, I'm horrible with names.
Yeah.
That one.
That one, yeah.
The one in the picture right there.
So, right. So, and one of the key things that happens in the comics is the son of the governor, I guess, or whatever her
Right.
he winds up killing, no spoilers here, the comic's been out a while, killing, what's his face, cowboy hat. Big gun, sheriff. What's his name? Help me out here.
Michonne's husband.
Yes, him.
Rick.
Rick, right. So he winds up killing Rick, and that sends that whole story down. So they wind up doing something completely different here.
Okay.
Like, not even close to it.
Right.
So it was an interesting take on it, but the comics didn't end.
Right.
Which is the weird thing. So you get the penultimate episode of the comics, and everything's, all hell's breaking loose, and it doesn't end. And then the final episode is a time hop.
Right.
That tries to sort of tell you where things are 20 years in the future or whatever.
Right.
And it was such a disappointing end to the series. This one here, at least the TV series, kind of tied up all the loose ends by the end.
Right.
But you still have that potential for a 20-year time hop down the line there that you might pick things back up again.
Right.
So the contrast between the two is very different. They tried to stick to some of the story, but you just couldn't because of all the changes that happened up until this point.
Right.
It wasn't a MASH ending, and every time I think of like a series finale, I compare every series finale to MASH. Right? Because that was like the ultimate ending to the ultimate show. And it wasn't that, but it wasn't terrible. I don't know. I don't have any other words to really describe. It was kind of just, oh, okay. That's how it ended. All right. Well, let's move on to the next show now. Because you knew it wasn't over.
Well, and
that was the
that's
worst part.
kind of what I was thinking, is that we knew we weren't completely saying goodbye to most of these characters because they've already said, oh, by the way, we have these 3 shows in
There
production.
were no tear-jerking goodbyes. There was no, we'll never see you again type thing. It was like, oh, okay, guys, I'll see you on the set next week.
Right.
So it was like, it was such an artificial end to the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And let's be honest, 11 seasons, they dragged it out a little too far.
And that's the thing, is there were some seasons that didn't have to...
Like season 2. The Terminus season was terrible.
Or that didn't have to be so long. There,
Yeah.
And again, this is before COVID even happened, where there were seasons that were just kind of like...
That one whole season where they were wandering in the woods. The only good thing that came out of that season was look at the flowers. Just look at the flowers. Now, if you get that reference, I commend you for sticking with the show, okay?
And that's the thing, is there were people who had started watching it and got to a certain point and they were just like, you know what?
And I told
I'm
you,
done.
when I binged watched the first 7 seasons,
Right.
had I watched Season 2, week to week, I would have walked away from that bored out of my mind. The only thing that kept me with the show is that I had binged the entire season and was able to get it done in a couple
Right.
days.
Right.
So, but anyway, that ended kind of in preparation
Sorta.
for the new ones to come out, which
Right.
Dead City is out. We saw first 2 episodes, right?
We only watched the first one
Just
so
the
far.
first one.
But there have been 2. We haven't
Right.
watched the next
What's your opinion of the first episode?
one. I'm interested to see where it goes, but it's kind of oh look, there's more bad people. Oh, okay. Wow, there's more bad people and they're really, really bad and they're stuck on an island in New York. Ooh, let's go. And then you have, like, you even brought up the whole marshals and things that are, trying
Just
to
doesn't
keep
make sense.
law and order. And it's like, well, what organization is there? How did that organization come to be? Because
Well, and how do you invest somebody with authority in a society where you can kill people at will? Like
Right.
there's no laws. The only thing that makes a law enforcement officer valid is people who follow the law.
Right.
And if you don't follow the law, you face the penalties. Well, if nobody follows the law and you're just killing people,
Right.
like clearly they are. I mean,
Right.
you literally have communities that are miles away from each other going to war with each other. The premise of a marshal doesn't make any sense.
Right. Now, I did read some brief thing because I didn't want to know spoilers, but there was somebody that had watched the whole season and basically said you have to give it a couple of episodes to finally get going.
Oh,
and,
it's the Disney philosophy now.
yeah, pretty much.
You need to get 4 episodes into the 7-episode series before it gets interesting.
Right. So we'll see. We'll probably watch it just to.
What I think what annoyed me was there was always this curiosity of what could possibly bring Negan and Maggie together
Right.
to go on this adventure to New York City.
Right, because you
and we
knew.
called it months ago what it was, and the fact that we were so spot on for it was
Right.
just so disappointing.
Right, but still, we don't know why Negan was where he is. They still haven't really, like he kind of hinted, but nothing else. Like no more information
Right.
about what happened.
But that's not what interests me. How he got there.
Mm-hmm.
He got there probably because he got kicked out of 12 other communities because of who
True.
he is.
Yeah, well.
I would expect nothing less. But the fact that you have Maggie, and the only reason that Maggie went to find Negan was because the guy who runs this new gang in New York happened to be one of his followers.
Right.
That is such a weak driver, motivational driver for putting aside the fact that this man bashed your husband's brains out in front of you.
Right.
It makes no sense from a logical standpoint.
Yeah.
You could have literally taken anybody else and been just as effective. So my hopes aren't particularly high for this one, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
What's the next big disappointment?
Well, no, it wasn't a disappointment.
That it's over, I mean.
Oh, okay. Would be Star Trek Picard. That happened to be a favorite of ours. It aired for 3 seasons and wrapped up. So the series actually begins in 2399, which is 20 years after Jean-Luc Picard's last appearance in That's what happened.
That's pretty much
That's
it.
pretty much what happened.
No spoilers or anything though, but he has another son. It's not a clone from Nemesis that the Romulans made. And he helped the synths to define the fact that they could exist, kind of like he did with Data when the only thing with the series was they kind of recycled a lot of themes that they had previously.
Right.
There wasn't fresh themes there, but the way that they did it, it was a throw to the fans.
Well, definitely season 3 was definitely a throwback and a love letter to the fans because they knew it was ending. They knew they weren't doing a 4th season, so they knew they kind of had to tie up all of the loose ends. So
Right.
you had where, season 2 and season 1, you had a couple of cameos by a couple of different things. By season 3, it was basically everybody in it, all these different cameos and people that you weren't even expecting to show up. That we would watch and be like, oh my God, is that? And it was, and so that was kind of neat to have that happen. And then
It was the only problem is there was some of the situations in which these people showed up were completely unbelievable. It's like these people don't have a life. Like they all just sit around waiting for Picard to call them and come do something.
okay, yeah, they're all retired for the most part.
I love
Sure,
the
why
fact.
not?
I love the fact that they had Geordi running the ship museum, and he just conveniently put together the Enterprise that was destroyed in Star Trek Generations. Just conveniently happened to have that in his back pocket, just right when they needed
Because
them.
you never know when you're going to need a ship.
Yeah, it was.
Suspend reality.
I felt like so much of this 3rd season was forced down my throat. I ate it up.
You sure
because-
did.
because I'm a Star Trek fan.
Yep.
I just felt force fed so much of this and was just told to believe it. Yeah, that was really my take on it.
But who was your favorite character in the whole season?
My favorite character?
In the 3rd season?
I don't know. Who was my favorite character?
Who wasn't from the original?
Who wasn't from the original? I don't know. I don't think I really had a favorite.
Wasn't the captain?
Oh yes, the captain of the. What was the ship? Oh yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, we're not going to mention that.
No.
But the captain of the other ship was my favorite, just because he was so dry and sarcastic.
Yes.
And he was a prick, and he admits that he's a prick, which just kind of endears you. And unfortunately, he doesn't make it out of everything as squeaky clean as everyone else does. But yeah, he was definitely the highlight.
He
of
definitely
the series.
added to the highlight of your watching.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, Picard seasons 1 through 3 now available on Paramount Plus. We're going to take a quick break. Come back. We're running a little bit late here for the good, the bad, and the ugly segment. We'll be right back. I don't have the music queued up, unfortunately, but we'll be right back. So the good. We mentioned it earlier during our trip to Niagara.
Right.
Down up to Niagara Falls. The one gem that we found in what was really a sad, rundown resort town that is on its bad luck, really, was a restaurant that we found on the other side of town from the resort we stayed in called The Bakery.
Yes.
The bakery itself, and I did a review. You can find my review up on Google if you look it up on Google Maps. We have pictures and everything there. The bakery was the most unique eatery experience that I think we've had in a long time. It was genuine. It was authentic. You walked in there and you felt like you were in your mom's house from the 1950s and 60s.
Yes.
It was decorated beautifully, and the staff was attentive. When you had gotten up at one point in time to take some pictures because of how unique the place was, the chef came over.
Right.
and said, "Oh, well, if you're interested in learning more about it," and he took you on a tour of the
Yeah,
place.
he
and
gave me a little
showed you
walk
the
through
place.
what was interesting. So it was originally a bakery, and the baker's house were next to each other. So that's what became this building. And he took me, to the hallway where the restrooms were, and you could see through the architecture, oh, this is where the house was, this is where the bakery was, and they kind of built the two buildings together, and you could see where the front porch had been, where they had built an enclosure, and then the one area had been a dance hall, had been a speakeasy at one point in time. There was a back entrance that you would come in to go in to dance and drink and stuff. So just got all these historic things from it. There was even a picture of the original house, and a picture of the original family was there too. So if you didn't know that it was there, you might not have even known the history of it.
Yeah.
So
it was such a genuine experience, and it was so enjoyable. Chef Joseph was so attentive.
Mm-hmm.
You had gone off to the restaurant at one point in time, and he was talking to Maddie and I, and he was saying, I don't live in town here. I commute in from Buffalo, and he was giving us,
suggestions
things to
of
do
other
in
things. Yeah,
it was just so.
Mm-hmm.
It really made kind of a lukewarm trip really special to do that, and it was before we went to the Strong, by the way.
right. Yeah.
So that was the other highlight of the trip itself, was the bakery in
Right.
Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
Now for the ugly. So we had talked about this a lot. We had talked about the anticipation of it coming. We had talked about the accommodations and the experience. And we talked about the price. And we said, I'll be shocked. And I have to go back and probably get my quote. I'll be shocked if this lasts 18 months. And of course, we're talking about Disney's Galactic Star Cruiser, which is set for its final voyage in September. Hasn't been open 2 full years now?
Yeah, it's been 18 months, I believe.
18 months. And they're closing because they can't convince enough stupid people to pay the kind of money that they want you to pay. And really, it was ridiculous that they were charging the equivalent of a 7-day cruise for 2 nights
Right.
to basically stay in a prison cell.
Right.
And that's what people who've stayed there described it as. No windows. You're sleeping in bunk beds, like prison-style bunk beds. Your day is regimented. You have to do certain things because of the way that they have their interaction.
Right.
And people just didn't find it enjoyable.
Right. And if you weren't the type of person that enjoyed role playing or LARPing or anything to that, this wasn't for you, because you're not going to get anything out of it. Now, people that were into that and liked dressing up and liked being interactive, they enjoyed the trip because it was immersive that way. But if you weren't that type of person, you were probably bored out of your mind because there wasn't anything else to do. Or you kind of felt weird hanging around other people that were doing these adventures and things like that. So
I just want to take a moment to tell Disney, I told you so. I took great pleasure in hearing about this, because there was as much as I would have loved to go and experience it, there was no way in hell that I was going to give Disney that kind of money for any kind of experience. I don't care. I'm not giving Disney that much money for something like that for 2 days.
right. Now, if it was a week's
Absolutely.
vacation with, on an actual cruise ship, yes, I will
Absolutely.
give you that kind of money.
Right.
For me to actually go someplace and see something and do. But yeah, that was the thing. We were very excited when they were first announcing it, and we said, okay, let's see what it comes out to be, how much it's going to be, how much, okay, where's our price point, what we're willing to spend. And then when the prices came out, it was just,
And then Disney
What?
slapped millions of people in the face with
Yeah.
the fictitious price that they gave you. And it was just embarrassing.
Right.
I was embarrassed for Disney that they were asking people
Yeah.
for that kind of money.
yeah.
Second ugly thing, and this is one that's near and
Well,
dear.
this is really the bad. This is probably more than ugly.
Oh, right. This is the bad. Sorry, I went out of order.
Yeah,
The
it's
bad,
okay.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
fine.
okay.
You can fix it in post.
Yeah, I'll fix it in post. I keep saying that. Anyway, we were robbed. Somebody stole money from us. And the people that stole money from us were the Philly Pops and the Kimmel Center. Because we had bought tickets for a Star Wars concert event. And it was canceled at one point in time. Allegedly.
It was supposed to be last summer,
Right.
and then due to whatever reasons, they had to postpone it until June of this year. So they said, hold on to your tickets.
They didn't offer any refunds.
Right. You could
Wait a
you could
year.
transfer your ticket to something else, but just hold on to your tickets. Everything will be fine. We'll see you June 2023.
Right. And then what happened?
Oh, it's postponed again, but we don't know when now or where it'll actually even be.
They were very communicative, the Philly Pops were, in telling us about this legal battle that they had with the Kimmel Center. And it was a terrible thing, and they kicked them out, and they're not giving them any concert hall time, and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't give a damn about any of that. All I know is I paid money for a concert that they didn't put on, and I don't care whose fault it is. The concert was scheduled for last week. I want my concert, or I want my money.
Right.
I don't want to wait. I don't want to hear it's postponed. I don't want to hear this guy did this. I don't want to hear that you're crying poor mouth. You took my money. You didn't give me a product. You stole my money. And it was the Philly Pops and it was the Kimmel Center that stole my money. And at this point in time, I'm waiting for the class action lawsuit because I know it's going to come out and I'll get $3 back from it and the lawyers will get the rest of the money. But at least based on principle, someone's going to pay something for this. And neither the Philly Pops, which we've gone to a number of their shows already, nor the Kimmel Center will ever get another dime from me because they stole my money. That's my public service announcement for today.
Do you feel better now?
A little bit.
Okay.
A little bit. It's a little hot in here now, so I'm getting a little hot under the collar.
I understand.
So, anyway, that was the afterthoughts I had. Be careful of who you give your money to. Don't trust anybody, etc., etc. Be paranoid like me.
Sure.
And bitter. Be bitter, too.
Be better.
That's the important part.
Nice.
I don't forgive. I don't forget either, so I guess it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was all we had for the show today. Before we go, I do want to once again invite folks from our listening and viewing audience. If you don't already do so, please subscribe to our podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You're looking at me as though I have to say something.
No.
Okay. We're on Google, Stitcher. I would also ask you to take a few moments, give us a review. Give us a thumbs up or a star or whatever your podcast of choice uses for a rating system itself.
High five.
High fives work too.
Fist pump. I don't know.
That works. I don't know of any of them that do fist bumps, but that can be kind of awkward. Also, reach out to us. Give us your feedback. Tell us how we're doing. You can email us at comments@insightsintothings.com.
You can find us on Twitter at insights_things.
We do stream 5 days a week on Twitch at twitch.tv/insightsintothings.
You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/insightsintothingspodcast.
On Instagram, we're at Insights Into Things.
And you can go to our main website that has links to everything that we mentioned, which is www.insightsintothings.com.
That's it. Another one in the books.
Have a good week, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.